Well, welcome to 2020. I'm Jason Raitz. And if you're under 30, you don't know who that is, but thank you, Barbara Walters, for all of your years of service. Welcome to 2020. Are we excited for a new year, Thrive Church? Yes, new year, new year. Well, here's the thing, church, when people say that word church, some people, you'll get all sorts of different responses. Some will say nothing, some will give you an eyebrow, some will flinch, some will say things like, churches are just filled with hypocrites. Church just wants my money. Church people are judgmental. Some will say church is where they found Jesus. Some will smile. Some people met their spouses at church. Some were loved by neighbors who brought them to church as kids and they found Jesus. Some will immediately think of a building when they think of church. I've worked for a lot of churches over the years, for 24 years, almost 25 years. My first church was amazing. It was 100 years old, Redford, Michigan. But the people were amazing, but they were stuck in the past. And they just didn't want to change. And for the last 30 years, they've been dying. Then after that, I worked for a church that had millions of dollars sitting in endowment funds. They were just sitting there. And I'm like, why are we not using these funds to impact people for Jesus? And I started honestly getting a little jaded about the church when I realized that. Then I worked at this church in Waterford, Michigan, where we had 300 people as a church. It was actually a smaller church than Thrive Church, but we had this great little building. And myself and Dr. Tom, who was not a doctor at that point, he was what was called an intern, we had this big dream about hosting this event that reached thousands of teenagers. And we're like, how are we going to do this? We have no budget. We have nothing. It's just like Tom and I. Like that's kind of a scary group. But after a couple of years, we had hundreds of kids in the youth group. We started this lock-in called the 12-Hour Blitz. And in 2001, 2,600 and some students attended. 2,600 students. Have you ever been in a room in a church building with 2,600 students? It's crazy. Kids everywhere. They trusted in Jesus. It was just amazing. And I saw that anything was possible. Then God took us out to Chicago, and we got to work at this church called Willow Creek. Some people think of Willow, and they think of the giant building. It's 800,000 square feet. I mean, it's just massive. But I think of Willow, I think about how focused they were on reaching the lost and how they were so good at helping leaders lead and how they were there for the broken. Then, I don't know why, God moved us to Mount Pleasant. I just prayed, God, take me to Florida. Please, Lord, please, Lord, please, Lord, please. And we came to Mount Pleasant. And the whole first week, I looked for the mountain. And people, I drive around town. I go into Sitco. Where's the mountain? Oh, yeah, it's over there by the thing. So I drive over there by the thing. And I would just go everywhere looking for the mountain. And I'm still, 10 years later, looking for the mountain. But I came to Mount Pleasant, believe it or not, because I worked at another church across town. I don't know if some of you know that. I worked at Mount Pleasant Community Church. It was a short 14 months. It was the absolute wrong fit. They're very good people. But let's just say I was a little bit too much of a rebel for them. I don't know if you know this, but I'm not so much the traditional pastor. I know some of you are shocked, and it wasn't a good fit for me because I was just like, I'm going to get in trouble all the time because I'm just pushing buttons. Let's not do things the way we've always done. I love that church, but it was just not the right fit. And so on October 6, 2013, we started Thrive Church. I still, to this day, I'm like, oh my goodness, how did we do this? Do you know how much time and energy and effort it takes to get a church off the ground? It's just crazy. It's just crazy. But we had this group of people, this crazy group of people who desperately felt like there was a huge need for a non-country club church in town. A church for people who'd given up on God in church, a church for the least, the lost, and the last, a church for people who didn't just want some rituals, but who didn't just want religion, but wanted a relationship with Jesus, who wanted a deeper, stronger, more vibrant, growing relationship with Jesus Christ. A church where you didn't have to dress up to impress anyone, a church where kids came first, a church where there was never a need for kids volunteers because people just stepped up all over the place to serve. A place where there was never a need for a teenager to go to summer camp because people donated the funds to make it happen. A church where people woke up early on Sundays to get there because they wanted to flood the front to get their seat so they could worship with hands raised high. A church where families loved serving together. A church where it was so crazy important to be a small group because we just all know that's where it happens. Being in rows like this is awesome. But when you get into someone's house and you get to be prayed for and cared for and open up scripture together, that's where real life change happens. And a church that's known in the community for their love of Jesus and their love of the community. That's why we started this church. We wanted to be the church for Central Michigan. We wanted to be the church. And that's the kind of church we still want to be. Do we do all those things super, super well? No. But we're working hard on it, and I'm going to keep challenging us to do that. And so here's my dream for 2020. Here's the dream that God's laid on my heart. About 2 months ago, he relit a fire in me that, like, you got to tell Thrive Church every Sunday, this is not our home. Like, we've got to get out of this building, because there is a day, I believe in 2020, where kids and teenagers and college students and adults will be walking through those doors. Now, here's the thing. We said it a couple weeks ago. One person claps, we all clap. So let's do that again like we mean it, all right? The very one funny thing about this, that we didn't notice until we looked at the banner, is that this car is a BMW. And I was like, I don't think there's a Thriver with a BMW. No offense. No offense. Maybe an older one, like, no. But welcome to Vision Sunday 2020. It's our 321st Sunday. We have 51 more to go in 2000. Here's my ask, here's my challenge, here's my request. Let's not waste a second. Let's not waste one Sunday. Like, we get to come together, and it's beautiful what happens, because the momentum that is then released in the Central Michigan is powerful. So I just dream of the day that we as Thrivers rearrange our schedules to be here, to be in our small groups. I dream of the day where parents are so passionate about making sure their teenagers are connected with other teenagers, and a small group leader that after every 10, 15 service, parents are getting their kids ready to drop them off at the hub for One Youth. Like, I dream of the day where all during the week, Thrivers are sharing Jesus with their friends, where we're sharing about Thrive Church. And I dream of the day that we live out Acts 2, 42 to 47. This is how we started the church. This is the scripture that guided us. This is what it says. That day, about 3,000 took him at his word, were baptized, were signed up. They committed themselves to the teaching of the apostles, the life together, the common meal, and the prayer. Everyone around was in awe. All the wonders and signs done through the apostles. Which, did you just get that, what happened a minute ago? Jamie talked about one of those things that happened in his life. Like a miracle that happened. Like, people should be in awe of that. He didn't have a car, and God provided a car. Like, that's something to celebrate, right? Like, that's incredible. Like, that's incredible. All the believers lived in wonderful harmony, holding everything in common. They sold whatever they owned and pooled their resources so that each person's need was met. They followed a daily discipline of worship in the temple, followed by meals at home, every meal a celebration. Exuberant and joyful, they praised God. People in general liked what they saw. Every day their number grew. Like, I dream of that day for Thrive Church, where we care so much for our church and we care so much for our community that we're willing to sacrifice like crazy to make kids' environments happen for our children. Like someday this year we'll move into our building, and we're going to create spaces for our kids on Sundays and spaces for kids during the week when moms and stepmoms and stepdads and stepmom, all the different parents can bring their kids during the week. And I Googled some of my favorite kids environments. I promised myself I'd be cleaner in 2020. How incredible, how incredible, how stinking incredible would this be to walk in the church? Can you imagine your kids I want to go to church. And that's not just to get them there, but while they're there, then we could teach them about Jesus and show the love of Jesus. Look, this is what's possible because our church has gifted builders and artists, and we can do these sort of things. We can you imagine kids sitting there, being engaged in a program about Jesus and worshiping together? This is what's possible if we sacrifice together. If we pray through asking God for, it's possible. Anything's possible. And so I love this quote by Dr. Rick Warren when he talks about the church. He created the church to meet your 5 deepest needs: a purpose to live for, a people to live with, principles to live by, a profession to live out, and a power to live on. There's no other place on earth where you can find all 5 of these benefits. That's why the church is so beautiful. That's why we can't take it for granted what we get to do in this place. We get to come together as a community. That's why we need to celebrate that. Well, welcome to Thrive. My name is Jason. I'm the pastor of Thrive Church, and I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for Jamie and Kevin setting us up, especially about those Connect cards. It's so important so we can get to know you and be praying for you. And if you're joining us on Facebook Live, thank you. Really join us. Comment in the section. Go to the online comment card. Go to the online giving page. Actually engage with us. We have someone, I don't know if you know this, but we have a volunteer every week who responds back and has that community with people. So I was sitting in McDonald's this morning, my every Sunday morning tradition, where I'm sitting there and I was all alone in the restaurant in the back corner where I sit by myself, going over my notes, just praying. And I think the workers didn't know anybody was in the restaurant, so they started joking around. And I'm okay with jokes because, my dream someday, if I wasn't a pastor, I'd be a semi-dirty Christian comedian. And so And so I full well know, because I have like some no depth perception with my voice. I've said some inappropriate things at times that I've mostly sort of kind of regretted. But they like started like super inappropriate stuff. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is a good reminder. Like, what if somebody walked up on me sometime? And so I don't know why I said all of that, but that was just a reminder to say I was sitting at McDonald's and I was praying and I was getting ready. And I was thinking about the weight and the responsibility and the joy of being your pastor. And I was thinking, holy cow. Like, holy cow. Like, it's pretty heavy. Like, and for about the first 5 years of our church, I didn't have a job description, which is crazy for me because I'm super anal. All of our staff have job descriptions. They're probably way too detailed, but I'm just like, I want to make sure people know exactly what's expected of them. Here's what we're doing. And so, like, follow the job description. Like, that's the plan. And so I didn't have a job description because when we started the church, my job was to do whatever it needed to happen to make this thing happen. And then as we hired staff and those kind of things. So I just decided I'd give you a little bit of my job description because I have one now. And so maybe as I read this to you, it will give you a better understanding what Jason does. Like, does he just sit in his home office, his nook, and listen to Hootie all day? Like, what does he do? Like, is he in mourning that the Patriots are out of the playoffs? Like, maybe he is, you know? I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. One clap, yeah. Which, better be careful what you're clapping for. But here's my job description. It's 6 components. 1, listen to God. Listen to God. I'm Thrive's chief intercessor. Your whole church prays, but you lead the way. There should be few in the church who pray with more zeal and more consistently than you do. You set the pace. It's not that your prayers are more spiritual or that God talks to you more, but there is something deeply sacred about the office of pastor. It's not a power thing, but it's a matter who prays. It's about calling. Last night I'm in Sam's Club. I'm getting my grocery list. I'm trying to figure everything out. And I'm down this aisle and a guy comes up to me and says, hey, I watch you every Sunday morning. Because I haven't been able to make it there yet. I haven't felt comfortable walking in the building, but I watched, you're my pastor, and Thrive is my church, and I just wanted you to know that. And he said, you know, I'm just struggling. Is there any way you'd pray for me? And right there in the aisle where I was dreaming about a leather couch, because someday I'll have that brown leather couch. Someday I will have a Sam's Club couch. I mean, it's nice, but someday. I got big dreams, people. But right there in the couch aisle, I laid hands on him and prayed, and I thought, what the heck? What an awesome responsibility that I get to have. So number 2, shape the culture. Lead a way in setting the church's culture that is positive, full of faith, risk-taking. Steer clear of inward, unclear, and passionless faith. Like the interesting thing about, like someone asked me once, like, how do you keep going? Because pastors want to give up at times. Pastors want to give up. Pastors don't always want to show up on Sundays. Pastors don't always say the right thing or do the right thing or show up when somebody needs. They don't. But I just at some point said, you know what? Like I that's not an option. I got to keep going. Like, and so that's hopefully what I modeled to you. And that's why sometimes, just a little pause in the action, why I'm probably too transparent on Facebook sometimes. And I love emotional intelligence, and I think Facebook is the land where emotional intelligence goes out the window. But I sometimes present the real struggles of life on Facebook that I go through because I want you to know, I want people on Facebook to know, you can overcome them. God, it's going to happen. Satan's going to throw crap at you, but you can overcome them, and you can decide not to quit. And you don't know where the miracle's going to happen. You don't know when it's going to come, but it will, so stay the course. Stay in it and keep going. And sometimes I share those real stories on Facebook so people know, oh, it's not just, like, pastor's life has to be glorious. Like, he's probably just sitting in his nook listening to Hootie, eating chocolate-covered pretzels, which are my favorite. Shape the culture. 3, communicate biblical truth. You engage a supernatural power every time you speak the word of God. There's just something powerful when we talk about God's word. And so that's 3. 4, cast clear vision. In order to lead people move forward, you must have vision. Clear sense of direction is needed to inspire momentum. Ask these questions. Where are you going? How will you get there? You don't need to have all the answers, but you need to know the next step. Casting vision is not limited to Sunday mornings. In fact, it happens all throughout the week. 5, develop leaders. Next to the favor of God, everything rises and falls on leadership. You need more leaders to help you carry out the vision that God has given you. Develop a plan to identify, raise up, shepherd, and empower leaders. Like, Thrive Church is not about Jason helping people find and follow Jesus. It's about every single one of us. And my role is to help you and equip you to share Jesus wherever you're at. That's it. and then to raise up as a leader. Like, I love when people have dreams for new ministries here at Thrive and how we can reach new people. Then 6, connect with the community. And this is where I've done a really poor job because I've been so busy over the years trying to put out fires and do all that kind of stuff, but stick to the priorities best you can, empowers others to do the rest. Live out leadership evangelism and connecting with key leaders in your city. Like, I just want to keep connecting with people. So those are the 6 primary functions. We put Dave Shepard in place as executive pastor, so he oversees the day-to-day budgets, operations, staffing, those kind of stuff. So my role is to teach God's word, cast vision, and be the lead prayerer. Like, that's why you pay me at Thrive Church. Like, that's what we're going to do together. So I just wanted to make sure we're like all on the same page what Jason does, in case you're like, oh, is he listening to Hootie again? But here's what I know. We are blessed to be a part of this church. The local church is beautiful, and we can't ever take it for granted. Do you know why? You know why we can't take it for granted? Because it was Jesus's idea. So here's the thing that just chaps me sometimes the wrong way. When people are like, I don't need the church. Like, I could do church on my own. No, you can't, because Jesus' idea was for us to do it together. And so you're like creating your own idea then. Because Jesus is like, you got to do it together. So when you're like, oh, do you need solitude and alone time and all that kind of stuff? Yes, but that's why we do it together. Jesus said in Matthew 11:28, come to me, all you are burdened and weary, and I will give you rest. Like, Jesus says he'll give you a peace, he'll give you a purpose worth living for, he'll give you a hope worth dying for, and that's all expressed in the church. It's his legacy, his family, his presence on earth, his idea. Where else can people go to learn about the value of every human life and how we've all been made in God's image than the church? Where else is that taught? The offer of forgiveness of sin, the promise of a resurrection, the demands of God's holy justice, his love expressed through people. That's the beauty of the church. That's why it matters. So let's be that kind of church in 2020. Like, that's what we want to be. One of my favorite authors, pastors, a guy by the name of John Ortberg. All of his books are my favorite. Life You've Always Wanted, Everybody's Normal Till You Get to Know Them, Who Is This Man? Like, I love every single one of Love Beyond Reason. I love every single one of his books. They have changed my life. But he spoke recently about the local church, and I grabbed some of his words to share with you because they were just so good. But we see why the church is so beautiful and why it's so important in Matthew 16, 17, and 18. And it's on the screen if you want to follow along. Simon Peter answered. Jesus had just asked the disciples, who do you think I am? And Simon Peter answered, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. So Jesus replied, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, by my Father in heaven. Jesus is doing something that rabbis do when they bless people. Like, we see that there's still something today where people like that guy in Sam's yesterday. He wanted to be prayed for and blessed by his pastor, like that's just one of those things. So verse 18, and I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. For so many, this is the most discussed verse in the most discussed paragraph in the Gospel of Matthew, because here's the thing. No one had ever heard of this before. No one had ever heard the word church before. This is the very first time the word church is used, and it's used by Jesus himself. So the disciples' response would have been, what's a church? What is this nonsense you talk about here? Like, what's happening right now? And so Jesus is saying, who will build his church? I will build my church. Let's read it together. I will build my church. Let's say it again like we mean it. I will build my church. This is the first time ever. Moses didn't say it. Anybody else in the Bible didn't say it. And it's not the pastor who will build the church. It's not the staff who will build the church. It's not the congregation that will build the church. Not the denomination, which we're not a part of a denomination, so it doesn't really matter. But it's not the denomination who builds the church. It's Jesus. Who? Who will build the church? Jesus. Who? Come on. Who? Jesus builds the church because he said it himself. I will build my church. And the thing is, the ancient world had tribal religions. They had philosophical schools, but this was different. Jesus was saying he was going to build an all-inclusive community of love that would not just tolerate, but would embrace every gender, ethnicity, culture, status, nationality, and language. And he said that the community would not have as its mission, not of enriching its own members, but they would actually sacrifice themselves for the enrichment for the people on the outside. Like, that's the crazy thing about the church, to bring the knowledge of God to every person, the justice of God to the oppressed, and the generosity to every need, the forgiveness of God to even those who persecuted the church. They would do this with humility, and they would bow down like they were slaves, and they had the courage to go before the emperor himself in Rome to do this. Nothing like this had ever been in existence before. It had not even been thought of. Jesus thought up the church. And so let's say you're Jesus. You're a penniless carpenter 2,000 years ago. You have barely anything on your resume up until you're 30 years old. You're a carpenter. You're God's son. I guess that's pretty big. Your mother was a virgin. What? I guess that's kind of a crazy thing on your resume. Maybe not, but anyways, I'll keep going. There's more to that virgin story. Let's keep going. But like, how would you create a movement that would live on for thousands of years, that would launch more hospitals, research universities, more relief organizations, would inspire more art than anything else in human history, that would spread to every continent, every culture, would attract billions of followers, and not only still exist, but be growing 2,000 years later? Like, what would you do? What would your first step to be? Like, this is what Jesus the carpenter did. He loved, and he taught, and he healed, and he died in an unforgettable way on a cross, and he was resurrected. Like, that's what he did. And then he gave it to like normal people. What? Like, this is the passage, the first time the disciples get a glimpse of how big Jesus is. Now they're like ready for the first, like, are they ready for the glimpse of how big his project is going to be, the church? Like his project, the church? Like, that's it, the whole thing. He's going to do it through them. Like, and they didn't necessarily sign up for the church building business. They signed up to be in the rabbi following business. Like, I'm going to go follow Jesus, the rabbi. Let's do that. You learn Torah, you get a wife and kids, you settle down, you go to the temple. Like, that's what you do. But like, he asked them to sign up to build something they never heard of, sacrifice time, money, energy, have people laugh at you, persecute you, run risks, go all around the world, go to jail, and be martyred. Like, whose idea is that? Oh, it's Jesus's. Like, here's the thing. This is a chance of a lifetime. This is worth living and dying for. It made everything else that he did possible. Like, that's the crazy thing that happened. I love that. Let's be that kind of church for Central Michigan. This passage gives us a few things to ask questions for. Like, who does the church belong to? Like, Jesus said, I'm going to build the church. He didn't say Peter's going to build his church, and Thomas is going to build his church, and Zacchaeus is going to have a short person's church. Like, he didn't say those things. Like, it's Jesus' church. I would love Zacchaeus' church. Like, that'd be awesome. All the doorways would be a little bit lower. You know, I mean, it's just, the urinals would be lower. I mean, it'd just be a great day. Sorry, that was way too much information. Way too much. I love going to bathrooms when they have the kid-size urinal. It's so great. I cut in front of those kids all the time. Anyways, let's keep going. Lord, forgive me, for I have done something. All right, let's keep going. Who does the church belong to? It belongs to Jesus, because we love him, we study him. We have one purpose, to help people find and follow Jesus. There's been no one like them. Who's going to build the church? Jesus. I will build my church. Jesus claims it. He will do it. If you've ever been around churches, why the heck did he pick us to help him? Like, we're messy. Like, even church leaders, pastors are messy. Like, my wife has been married to a messy one for almost 23 years. Like, church attenders can be messed up. Like, how's this going to work? Because Jesus is doing the building. He lets us help. And often he's building it in secret and unseen places. At the margins, through the poor in spirit, those who mourn, through the uneducated, through the unpaid volunteer. Through the unpaid volunteer like Emily Filter, who serves both services down in Thrive Kids every single week and drives from Lansing. So those of you who are like, oh, I drive too far from around the corner, like that's who it happens through. Like, it happens through all our production volunteers. For Wonder, do you know that Wonder was our highest attended ever? 854 people experienced Wonder. Our production volunteers set up and tore down for church on Sunday, drove over to Broadway, spent all day setting up, came back Monday, set up everything, did rehearsals, then did 2 services, came back the next day, did another service. Hundreds and hundreds. That's how it happens. It happens through those little groups of prayer warriors, through the widow who gives a tiny offering, but in whose God's eyes is the biggest. Through people like you and me, that's how Jesus is building his church. So how powerful is the church? Extremely powerful. Jesus says not even the gates of Hades, okay? The gates of hell. When people said in the ancient world the gates of Hades, they talked about the gates of Hades were like people's ultimate expression of human enemies, death and hell, right? Death and hell. And so he doesn't say when the forces of hell are unleashed, the gates of the church will be able to keep hell out. He says when the forces of the church are unleashed, the gates of hell will not be able to keep the church out. That's how powerful the church is, because the church is on the march with forces that the world can't see, like unleashing hope and generosity and love and compassion and truth and justice and forgiveness and humility. Like these we get to unleash on the world, and the gates of Hades will crumble and the darkness will go down. That's what happens with the church. That's why it's so exciting. So what would the church be like? It would become a worldwide movement. So let's join that. Let's be that kind of church. I love what Nicky Gumbel said, a British author who wrote this thing called Alpha Course. He said, churches are not museums that display perfect people. They're hospitals where the wounded, hurt, injured, and broken find healing. Like, let's be that kind of church. There's three truths that we can pull out of this scripture that Jesus teaches us, and I'll go through them. The first is this: everyone's welcome. Everyone's welcome. Say that with me. Everyone's welcome. Everyone's welcome. In Jesus' day, only some people were welcomed into the temple, and then there were secret parts of the temple. If there was one characteristic about Jesus that everyone knew and that drove people crazy and scandalized him from people, is that he welcomed everyone. And people knew that. He welcomed everyone: Jews, Gentiles, Samaritans, Roman soldiers, lepers, unclean, beggars, slaves, tax collectors, prostitutes, demon-possessed. He was so famous that in Luke 15:2 it actually says, "But the Pharisees and teachers of the law muttered, 'This man welcomes sinners and eats with them.'" Well, let's do the same. His last conversation on this planet before he died was with a criminal on a cross who the guy just asked him, "Please remember me." And Jesus had compassion on him. Like, it was like Jesus couldn't help himself. Like, this was his community. And after he died, the strangest thing happened. People remembered how Jesus treated people. And they remembered how, like, he treated slaves. The ancient world had no regard for slaves. Aristotle said all non-Greeks were slaves by birth. They were mistreated. Like, this is what's crazy sometimes when, like, people who don't believe that Jesus actually exists or get all, like, high and mighty about Aristotle. Yeah, Aristotle was famous, but, like, he believed in the mistreatment of people. And then here comes along this Galilean carpenter who, like, rose up and helped free slaves and helped treat them with equality. And he rose up the value of women and children. Like, for Pete's sakes, why would you not want to follow Jesus? Like, it's just incredible. And so the church then remembered how Jesus had cared for and modeled caring for people. So they themselves called themselves slaves for Jesus. And sometimes Christianity was called a slave religion. And the ancient world had no use for the poor. But they remembered this little church, and they remembered Jesus' word, "Blessed are the poor." So they welcomed the poor. And even one of the emperors of Rome, Julian the Apostate, he said, "I think when the poor were overlooked by the pagan priests, the impious Galileans," the Christians, noticed this and devoted themselves to generosity. They support not only their poor, but ours as well, as everyone could see that our people lack aid for us. There was once a day that people loved God and others so much that a miracle happened. A new community was formed. And Paul actually says this in Galatians 3:28. "There's neither Jew nor Gentile, slave nor free, nor male nor female. You are all one in Jesus Christ." One. So, friends, everyone is welcome at Thrive Church. Poor, rich, black, white, young, old, Democrat, Republican, atheist, agnostic, skeptic, Buddhist, Muslim, Christian, straight, gay, oppressed, depressed, happy, married, addict, single, divorced, got it together, falling apart. If you came today and you love Jesus, great. Or if you don't, great. If you're desperate for help, you're welcome here. It's not an accident you are here. And so if you're a follower of Jesus and this is your church, it means that, like Jesus, you have a heart to welcome everyone. You have a heart to welcome everyone. Not one person walks through these doors that we don't welcome, that we don't rush to, because we can't have holy huddles on Sunday mornings. Like my first church that I worked at, where everybody knew everybody and we all sat in the same place and was like, "I'm just going to talk to the people I know." That's not how it works. One of our staff members, Michaela, was sitting in Starbucks yesterday. She was overhearing a conversation, which is a beautiful trait. I do that all the time. I can't help myself. But I use it as a way as a pastor to go, "I'm praying for them." But it was two college students talking about their church, and they said, "Yeah, soon we got to leave our church, but nobody will notice when we're gone." And Michaela's texting me in tears like, "We can't ever let this happen at Thrive Church." And I'm like, "No, we can't. We can't." So it's on all of us. We gotta, people disappear. And people disappear at Thrive because we make people uncomfortable sometimes because they're looking for like a place where we're not gonna challenge them to serve or be in a group or give or like deal with their issues or be more emotionally intelligent or fall in love with Jesus or worship passionately. Sometimes they're just looking for like a place where they could just like sneak in, sneak out, check off church off their list. And we're like, "No, this is the place where you can do that, but we're gonna love on you and care for you." And so that's what we get to do. That's what we get to do. Let's be that kind of church. Everyone's welcome. Then nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. In God's eyes, nobody's perfect. This is important because religious communities have a way of dividing people up in the good and the bad. Man. Can we just, as a church, be careful in 2020 when election season comes? Can we just, like, politics are great, elections great, but can we just be kind to each other online? Can we just do that? Can we do that? Jesus was famous for insisting that, like, true goodness is a transformed heart. Like Mark 10:18 says, why do you call me good? No one is good except God. Matthew 23:28, Jesus said this about us. People look at you and think you're saints, but beneath the skin, you're total frauds. Like, Jesus sees us. He knows that, like, we can dress one way to come to church and look perfect, but we're thinking hate in our heart. We're walking by the person we're in conflict with, and we won't just do Matthew 18 and sit down with them and say, I've been hurt, you've been hurt. How can we work this together? Let's experience forgiveness. Like, in his new community, there's no hiding. There's no impressing anyone. There's no reputation building. There's no pretending. You might have to do that when you go to work or go to your in-laws' house, like I have for many years. But, which, mom and dad, in-laws, I love you guys. This is where we celebrate the recognition of spiritual and moral inadequacy. Like, you don't have to clean up. Jesus does that. Doesn't matter how long you've been following him. We always need him. Like, who is messed up? Like, we all are. Who has arrived? Like, you don't have to have that kind of thing here. Just, you're welcome. Everyone's welcome. Nobody's perfect. And lastly, anything's possible. Anything's possible. For Pete's sakes, Jesus picked Peter in Matthew 16:18 to build the church on. Like Peter the guy who stepped out of the boat in faith, walked a few steps, and then lost the faith, fell in the water. The guy who, the guy, there's just thing after thing after thing. He told Jesus he wanted to denied him 3 times. The guy who took out a sword and cut off somebody's ear, Jesus had to put this ear back on. Like, this is Peter. But this is who Jesus used. Anything's possible. He uses a greedy tax collector named Zacchaeus, who will become the poster child for generosity. He uses a 5 times married Samaritan woman to become one of the first preachers because he told her to go and tell everybody what happened. Like, he used the greatest persecutor of the church, Saul, and the greatest enemy, and he changed his life and he became the greatest champion. And so one of our dreams when we started this thing on October 6, 2013, was that if we ever shut the doors, the community would miss us. And for 321 weeks, we have faithfully preached the good news of Jesus. We served the least, the lost, and the last. We've blessed kids. Do you know when we started the shoe projects? Now we talk about the shoe project. Everyone's like, oh, the shoe project. We love the shoe project. There are people who didn't love it. Like, people stopped at the hub and they're like, Pastor, I have some concerns. I'm like, okay. What is your concerns? They go, we don't know if those kids deserve those shoes. Like, why are we giving the shoes to people we don't know? We should save that money. Okay, there's logical arguments for all of that. But, like, do you know how many people thought the shoe project would never succeed? Many, because I have them in emails, in a file folder that I keep that says Thrive's Yucky Emails. Like, I really do. I probably should get rid of that, but I have some really, like, can I just give you, like, one piece of emotional intelligent advice? Like, if you're going to put things in words, you better really mean them, because they stick, and people can save those things in text messages and emails. So that's why Matthew 18 works, so you can get face-to-face with people and talk it through with each other instead of putting it on a piece of paper. I can remember, like, Christians in the area telling me the Thrive Church would never succeed. Never. You know, this church will never succeed. Why are you doing this? People said to me, you're not cut out to be a pastor. You can't be a pastor. You're not gonna make this thing work. Anything's possible. Like, if you're a follower of Jesus, this is your home church. I'm asking you to show up, jump in, and do good. Like, to get real. Like, to get in the real community. Don't be a chronic visitor. Like, be someone who sticks around. Get in a small group, roll up your sleeves, give to God. Like, he's still building his church. And like what he talked about 2,000 years later, you're doing it. I'm doing it. We get to be a part. What if we prayed and served and gave so much that God kept building his church through us? What if we loved and cheered for our staff members so much that our young people in our church would just dream of being pastors someday? Do you know that the average age of pastors is rising and rising? Because I think the role of pastor is so unique in 2020. It's so different than generations of the past. It's always been hard. It's a hard job, like other people have hard jobs. It's such a different level of vulnerability that you have to be on display for people all the time. Like, it's a crazy level. And I think people have been hurt so bad. Like, I have kids of my own who I've been hesitant to get too involved in the church because I've seen how bad I've been shot in the back with arrows over the years. And my own daughter, I mean, as a kid, she was yelled at her by her youth leader. And I mean, like, people have tried to get stuff out of her about me in the hallway. And why did your dad decide this? And well, do you know where your dad eats lunch? Because I just want to surprise him one day. Like, weird stuff. Like, come on, people. But what if we loved our staff and our pastors so much that we cared for them so much that, like, our teenagers couldn't wait to be pastors someday? Like, I would absolutely love that. I love the team that God's brought to Thrive. And we've had a very consistent team. It's very unique among churches. There's a lot of turnover in churches. And I want to tell you about one of the transitions that we're experiencing as a church, because it's worth celebrating, because this staff member has been on staff for over 5 years. She was one of our first staff members. She helped dream up this church. There was 8 of us around a kitchen table, and we started dreaming about this church. And she started off as like a 1 hour a week assistant for me. And then she started doing event planning, and she did some of our early tailgate parties, and then she was my assistant. And then 3 years ago, I said, Sarah, I need you to be the Thrive Kids director. And she did kids ministry for years and years and years in our church. She wasn't really quite ready to step back in, but because her heart is so incredible, because her leadership is so strong, she said, if that's what you need me to do, I'll give you a year. And 3 years went by. And for about a month and a half, Sarah Burkhart, our kids director, has been praying, and she really believes that this season has been coming to a close, and so she has stepped down as our Thrive Kids director. And so as of January 31st, it will be her last day as Thrive Kids director. No one is more brokenhearted than me. Absolutely love Sarah. This church would not exist. She's one of those people that put this church on her shoulders and help lead. The Burkhart family, they're not going anywhere. This is their church home, so you'll still see Sarah here. And so as we started praying about this new staff member, who are we going to ask? Like Dave, I had this whole list. Tom Brady, looks like he's got time. Darius Rucker, he's on a tour right now. Ryan Gosling. Oh, well, like what parent wouldn't want to drop off their kids with Ryan Gosling? Like, we'd have every wife, mom, stepmom, most dads volunteer because he's just so amazing. So we started praying about it, and Dave just said, I just really think we need to ask Tracy Raitz. She started Thrive Kids. She helped start the church. She led Thrive Kids for 3 years. And so I didn't know. I was a little hesitant. Our family's been kind of crazy with some of the stuff that we're going through with Kai's adoption after 3 years as a sanctuary, and we have another situation. Anyway, so we're just kind of praying through it all, and then finally Tracy just said, no, I think God. So I'm happy to announce that Tracy Raitz is stepping back in as our Thrive Kids director. So I'm super excited. What if, though, as a church, we're not only generous, but we're irrationally generous? Like, we gave away in 2019 $38,000, 243. Like, we just gave it away. We gave it away to the community. We gave it away to church planning. That's more than 10% of our income. Like, we just believe in generosity. And so we help people with counseling who can't afford it. We gave away 2 cars this year. We've helped send kids to camp. We support missionaries in Southeastern Asia. We support Grumlaw Church, Treeline Church. We support Stadia, who's a church planting organization. We've given away boots. We gave the Mount Pleasant Middle School $1,000. We gave Bill City $1,000 that they're using for an assembly this spring. We've supported other organizations. We donated bags of gloves and hats. We gave $1,800 at Wonder to help out Mary McGuire. We blessed 2 pastors a month and a half ago. Do you remember that? Those pastors still text me. Like one of the pastors that preached that Sunday, David, his son still talks about it. Why did those people give us gift cards? So every time they go to a restaurant that they use that gift card, they pray for Thrive Church. And he's told his church, and he's told his pastor friends, and it's like gone all over the country what you did. Like, that's the crazy thing. Since day one, we've given away $212,012. Like, I love that. I absolutely love that. Now, some of you are like, well, don't we have money to save for a building? Why should we not just save that? Because here's the reality. In God's economy and kingdom, like, giving first is the first step. And it's this crazy thing that happens when you give first. Like, what happens afterwards? The blessings of God, it's just incredible. And so because of our generosity this next year, and I'm asking you, please, can you consider, if you're not giving financially yet, can you start? Can you start giving to the For Central Michigan campaign? Because when we do, we'll be able to move and have this environment for our kids ministry. Like, just imagine on Sunday mornings when kids walk into the kids' common area and they're checked in and they have the big play area and they have all the rooms that are just pimped out. Like, I don't know if I can use that word, but I'm the pastor, so I guess I will. Like, they're just, I guess I shouldn't use pimped out with children's ministry. Sorry. I mean, just imagine. And so right now we've raised $157,629 towards our for Central Michigan. Like our goal is about $750. That's everything. That's furniture, that's sound systems. Once we can get to about $300,000, we'll sign a lease. And I really do think the giving will start to really roll because we'll have about 5 months that we can get in there and start doing a lot of the building ourselves. And it's this incredible thing. So we're relaunching the For Central Michigan campaign. That's why there's the big banner out there. That's why when you leave today, there's this magnet. Every Sunday this month, we're going to be talking about it. I'm believing and praying for 150 people this year to give $1,000 towards the building. Whether all at once, throughout the year, sell their stuff. I don't care. Crazy generosity. I read just a minute ago in Acts 2, the generosity that happened. We're going to launch very soon this fundraising thing that we did for Kai's adoption, where we had this big giant puzzle and people sponsored pieces. We're going to do that for the building. We're going to have just different ways. I am traveling a lot this winter and spring. I'm trying to come up with 25 churches who would donate $5,000 a piece. So be praying for that. We're looking at hosting a For Central Michigan gala at the building where there's going to be a silent auction and we're going to wear like nice stuff like tuxedo suit t-shirts. I mean, we're going to look classy. We're going to look classy. If we did all of that stuff, we'd raise $600,000. Like we could do this. Like we're a church big enough that we could do this. And so our budget for this next year is about $30,000 a month. Anything over that, a month, not the whole year. Anything over that, we're just putting in the For Central Michigan campaign. Because this isn't our home. Like our home is a 24/7 space that we can open up to the community. And so right now, just to kind of give you an idea, there's about 45 families who like really carry the bulk of the budget, like who probably give close to the 10% range. What if another 45 stepped up? We'd have more funds then to give to kids ministry and one youth and small groups. Like we had 854 people at Christmas. We only budgeted $1,500 for that Christmas event. We got a $3,500 donation to make that happen. The reindeer and the Facebook ads and the radio and the ornaments and all that kind of stuff. Wasn't it worth it? Like, I mean, holy cow, people were coming in off the streets and they heard about Jesus and they worshiped together. And so here's the thing. He is still building the church. It's his. He thought it up, he created it, he authorized it, he resourced it, and when it had nothing, he launched it. When there was no idea of it, he continued to superintend it no matter how badly we mess up. He has no intention to let it go until it fulfills the purpose for which he created. And no matter what problems it faces, the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And that is the ministry that you and I have been called to devote our lives to. Others have come before us. Others will come after us. This is our day. This is our moment. Let's be all in. Let's be the church Central Michigan needs. What do you think? Can we do this? Let me pray for you. Let me pray. God, we just come before you. We thank you for this time together. God, let us be this sort of church where everyone's welcome. Nobody's perfect. Anything's possible. Everyone's welcome. Everyone's welcome. So, Lord God, we just pray that you would help us be this kind of church for Central Michigan. We just pray for this dream in 2020 of us moving into our own space. God, we just pray that you would give us ways to be generous. You would give other churches ways. You would give the community ways. And may we just love this community in such a powerful way that they would know about Jesus. So we ask this in your precious name. Amen. Amen, 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 amen.